Once upon a time, Mr. Reginald was a very rich man. He had houses, fancy cars, and a lot of money, but he felt sad and empty inside. He had everything he could want, but he still felt like something was missing. One day, he wanted to see what it was like to be a homeless person, so he decided to dress up like one and go out on the streets. At first, people ignored him or were mean to him. They walked by him like he was invisible. He felt lonely and hungry. He had never felt so unwanted in his life. He asked people for money or food, but no one gave him anything. He started to feel like he was all alone in the world. But then he found a special place called a soup kitchen. It was a small building with a sign that said, "Welcome, friends." Mr. Reginald was surprised when he went inside and saw a lot of people eating and laughing together. They were all different ages and races, but they seemed like a big, happy family. A kind lady named Grace came up to him and said, "Hi, welcome. Come on in. We have food and drinks for you." Mr. Reginald was amazed that someone was finally being nice to him. Grace showed him where to sit and brought him a hot meal. He was so grateful, he almost cried. As he ate, he talked to Grace and the other people there. They told him their stories, and he was amazed at how strong and brave they were. They had lost their homes, their jobs, and their families, but they still had hope. They still had each other. Mr. Reginald met a young woman named Rachel and her little girl Lily. Rachel was a single mom who had lost her job and her home, but she was working hard to get back on her feet. Lily was a happy, curious child who loved playing with the other kids at the soup kitchen. As the day went on, Mr. Reginald felt like he was part of the family. They accepted him for who he was, without judging him. They didn't care that he was rich or poor. They just cared that he was a human being. When it was time to leave, Grace gave him a big hug and said, "Thank you for coming, Mr. Reginald. You are always welcome here." Mr. Reginald felt a warmth in his heart that he had never felt before. The next day, Mr. Reginald went back to his mansion, but he couldn't stop thinking about the people he had met at the soup kitchen. He realized that he had been living in a bubble, surrounded by his wealth and his possessions. He had forgotten what it was like to be a real person, with real feelings and real needs. So, Mr. Reginald decided to use his wealth to help the homeless people he had met. He built them houses, gave them jobs, and provided them with food and clothing. He also gave them something even more important, hope. Years went by, and Mr. Reginald's work with the homeless people continued to grow. He built a whole community of houses, schools, and businesses. He helped thousands of people get back on their feet. And every time he went to the soup kitchen, he was greeted with smiles and hugs. He was no longer just a rich man. He was a friend, a brother, and a father. One day, Mr. Reginald decided to ask Grace to marry him. She said yes, and they had a beautiful wedding surrounded by their friends from the soup kitchen. Rachel and Lily were there, and Lily was the flower girl. Mr. Reginald finally felt like he had found his true purpose in life, to help others and to love Grace with all his heart. The moral lessons of this story are kindness and love can change people's lives. Mr. Reginald was a rich man who thought he had everything, but he was sad and empty inside. When he met Grace and the homeless people at the soup kitchen, he learned that true happiness comes from helping others and being part of a community. He used his wealth to make a difference in their lives, and in doing so, he found his true purpose and happiness. By helping others, we can find our joy and fulfillment. If you find my story interesting, please subscribe to my channel and like this video for more interesting and mind-blowing stories.